Hello, I'm Joe Chamberlain, the Executive Director of the Coastside Land Trust. I'm delighted to welcome you to one in the series of our community webinars. This one is Wetland Plants Along the San Mateo Coast, and it's going to be presented by our famous local botanist, Toni Corelli. Before we get Toni started here to tell you way more information than I'll be able to review, I can tell you that these webinars are on our website. And what that means is if you can't remember every single plant that Toni tells us about today, at any point in time, you can go on to our website, coastsidelandtrust.org, and pull up the webinar and watch it again. And that's fun to go back and look at the plants and then go out in the field and see if you can identify them. A little bit of the logistics for today. You will be receiving a follow-up email from this webinar that you can link to and keep in your records so you don't have to go through our website. It will also have some answers to questions and a link to 250 wetland plants that Toni's identified on the coast side. And so you will be able to, 250 plants, that'll take us a little while, won't it? There'll be a Q&A about 45 minutes into the webinar. At the bottom of your screen in that little black area, it says Q&A. And if you would just click there and place your questions, Toni will have an opportunity to answer those at the end of this presentation. Please, if you are supportive of us, which I certainly hope you are, consider including us in your donations to nonprofits for this year. Every penny that comes to us, we put right back into the community and into our open space and education programs. So with all the logistics completed, I want to share with you how delighted the Coastside Land Trust and I am that Toni Corelli is here today with us. Toni has presented several webinars on plants for different topics, flowers, shrubs, grasses, and those are available on our website. And I hope that you have a chance to look at those as well. It's more fun to go out on our beautiful open spaces and see these plants when you know a little bit about their personalities. And that's what Toni's going to share with us today. Also, I think she'll help us target the wetland areas that are part of this presentation today. So when you're out looking for wetlands, you'll have a destination if you so choose. So Toni's been presenting with us since I've been here. So that's over 20 years. And she is and continues to be incredibly generous with her time and her knowledge. So don't hesitate to ask questions. And I'm sure Toni will be delighted to answer them for you. So Toni, welcome. Please tell us a little more about yourself.
Hi, everyone. I'm Toni Corelli. Thanks for joining me today for my talk about the wetland plants along the San Mateo Coast. The map on the left shows the public lands along the San Mateo Coast, a narrow strip of land 50 miles long from Thornton State Beach down to Año Nuevo, just this narrow strip of land west of Highway 1. The plants and habitats that occur here are influenced by our rocky shore where it meets the Pacific Ocean and includes marine terraces, coastal bluffs, sandy dunes, beaches, marshes, and creeks and streams that flow westward from the slopes of the Santa Cruz Mountains to the ocean. In my presentation today, I'd like to show you some of the wetland indicator plants and habitats that occupy the public land along the San Mateo Coast, mostly west of Highway 1. I would like to respectfully acknowledge the indigenous people and tribes that live and have lived along the San Mateo Coast for thousands of years. They managed their natural resources and tended the land that provided the natural resources needed for their livelihood. They are the original explorers with their own dialects and names for the plants and animals they lived with and used in their daily life. I recommend California State Park archaeologist Mark Hilkema's 3-part webinar provided by the Peninsula Open Space Trust, The Indigenous History of the Bay Area. I also recommend the book Tending the Wild Native American Knowledge and the Management of California's Natural Resources, published in 2013 by M. Cat Anderson, who shares information on native land management practices gleaned in part from interviews and correspondence with Native Americans who recall what their grandparents told them and how and when areas were burned, which plants were eaten, and which were used for basketry, and how plants were tended. This map shows the native peoples that lived all along the San Mateo Coast. And this painting by Anne Thierman, Dancing at the Curiosity, shows how they lived in their villages with this amazing waterway right next, going by their village. The map on the right shows our 13 watersheds we have along the San Mateo Coast. These watersheds have over 14 creeks and streams that flow to the ocean here. A watershed is defined as a land area that channels rainfall and snowmelt to creeks, streams, and rivers, and eventually to outflow points such as reservoirs, bays, and the ocean. If you are standing or sitting or wherever you are in a watershed. Shown in this map, we have 5 groundwater catchment basins along the San Mateo Coast adjacent to the ocean. These natural basins have been formed by the creeks and streams that flow from the top of the slopes and the slopes of the Santa Cruz Mountains westward along the ocean over time. These basins occur in low-lying areas, marine terraces, and valleys along the coast. Water accumulates in these catchment basins as runoff from rain, and a combination of topography, elevation, and soil conditions make these areas rich in wetland vegetation. This is an aerial drone photograph taken by Steve Mahler, showing part of our Half Moon Bay marine terrace and water basin. The whole of the Half Moon Bay Terrace groundwater basin surface area is 14 square miles. It includes 4 watersheds and 6 creeks that flow into the Half Moon Bay Terrace water basin. The soil is rich in alluvial, ancient river deposits that have eroded from the streams that flow down into the Half Moon Bay Terrace, making our area rich in wetland, plants, and habitats. Here's the Santa Cruz Mountains up here, and all the water flows westward toward the ocean in this beautiful Half Moon Bay Marine Terrace. Here are some of the wetland habitats along the San Mateo Coast. They include coastal riparian that you can see here on the Cal Purisima Trail, creek and stream outlets seen here at Pomponio Creek, excuse me, seeps and springs on sea cliff faces seen here at Año Nuevo, coastal ponds here shown near Pigeon Point Light Station, coastal saltwater, brackish, and freshwater marshes shown here at Pescadero Marsh, and seasonal wetlands you can see on this walkway to Franklin Beach. Many of the plants I will be showing you today overlap into other wetland habitats as well, but these are some of the habitats and plant associates we have observed along the San Mateo Coast. How do we know what plants indicate a wetland habitat? The table on the left is the classification of wetland indicator plants based on the plant's availability to tolerate wetland conditions. This is published by the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers in 2012, updated in 2012. The indicator species are obligate wetland plants, almost always occurring in wetlands, Facultative wetland plants usually occur in wetlands, but may occur in non-wetlands. Facultative wetland plants occur in wetlands and non-wetland plants. And facultative upland plants usually occur in non-wetlands, but may occur in wetlands. Upland wetland plants almost never occur in wetlands. A bit ambiguous, but facultative means capable, but not restricted to a particular function. For the San Mateo Coast, for our California native plants, we have 58 species that are obligate wetland plants, 69 species that occur in wetlands but may occur in non-wetlands, 45 species that occur in wetlands and non-wetlands, 48 species that usually occur in non-wetlands but may occur in wetlands, and 3 species that are upland plants, almost never occur in wetlands. That's a total of 223 species of native plants that occur along the San Mateo Coast. Our total number of native plant species along the San Mateo Coast is 479. So that's 46% of our plants that may occur in coastal wetlands. Total number of species, native and non-native, that we found along the San Mateo Coast is 788 plants. There's no way I can talk about all the possible wetland indicators in this presentation, and I'd like to make more time at the end to interact with you. So I will put the list of 223 possible wetland indicator species that occur along the San Mateo Coast as an attachment to this presentation on the Coastside Land Trust webpage with my webinar. Many aquatic plants have special cells allowing them to grow in wetlands. Wetland plants are called hydrophytic. That means water loving. They have adapted to growing in conditions associated with prolonged saturation or flooding. Some of these plants have adapted to wet conditions by evolving specialized cells, lenticels, and hollow stems of sedges, rushes, and grasses, and the air sacs and cells called parenchyma in the roots of cattails. Other adaptations are that many species spread by rhizomes, underground stems, joining them together during water level fluctuation. This is Pescadero Marsh showing the cattails and tules in freshwater to brackish, in freshwater to brackish marsh. Many of the plants I will be showing you today can occur in other wetland habitats as well, as with the tule that occurs in many wetland habitats along the San Mateo Coast. Here are some of the wetland habitats and indicator plants we have observed along the San Mateo Coast. As mentioned, we have over 14 creeks that flow west of Highway 1. Each forms a freshwater corridor called riparian wetlands. Riparian means along the river. The arroyo willow is our most common willow along the San Mateo Coast. These thickets are formed by underground rhizomes, which are modified stems spreading out from nearby willow trees that sprout new trees that is a clone of the parent tree and form these incredible willow thickets all along the coast. Further along the creek, this photo shows that the willows open up and there is a dense understory vegetation. These are 2 of our most common species of willows that occur in our riparian habitat. The arroyo willow with its narrow leaves and roundish to slightly pointed leaf tips, and the Pacific willow that has long tapering leaves and glands on the upper petiole, the stalk to the leaf, and glands also on the stipules. Stipules are modified leaves at the base of the actual leaf. This is how you can easily tell them apart when they're in leaf. since they are deciduous and lose all of their leaves every year. Willow inflorescences are called catkins because they look similar to a cat's tail. Female flowers and male flowers here are on separate trees. This is called dioecious, which means two houses, the female on one tree and the male on another. The seeds are produced on the female flowers here, showing the tiny seeds that have hairs on them that are carried away by the wind. The right photo shows the male catkin of many flowers, each flower having two yellow stamens. This is the red alder. On the left, you can see the tree getting its new leaves. The leaf edge is curled under. This is a diagnostic characteristic that distinguishes it from other alders in our area. The center photo shows the flowers that are also called catkins, the female flowers and the male flowers. The mature fruit here is shown here, which is produced by the female flower. These plants have adapted to wet conditions by evolving specialized cells called lenticels. These are raised pores on the stem that allow the entrance of oxygen, excuse me, and the output of carbon dioxide and water vapor, helping them live in wet habitats. Another adaptation is that this tree produces nitrogen fixing nodule on its roots that makes nitrogen an essential element for plant growth available to the plant. And the nitrogen-rich leaves that litter the ground and fall enrich the soil with nitrogen, making these trees grow quite quickly. One great trail to see the riparian vegetation is the Cowell Purisima Trail in Half Moon Bay. The trail runs right along the cliff edge and with a bridge that crosses over the Purisima Creek, where you can see the riparian vegetation and the understory vegetation associated with it. Riparian wetlands are also rich in this understory vegetation with wetland indicators. Most species are herbaceous perennials that flower in the summer. Pacific oenanthe is an obligate wetland indicator plant in the Apiaceae, the carrot parsley family. These photos show the large green leaves and the inflorescence in a cluster of many white flowers. Another wetland indicator is salmonberry, shown here with its beautiful magenta flower and red berry. Along the Cowell Purisima Trail is one of the few places west of one where you can see this species, making it very uncommon along the San Mateo Coast. Watercress is in the Brassicaceae, the mustard family, often found in the rocky beds of the creeks and streams. It has hollow stems that allows it to float in the water. This species, Nasturtium officinale, is a common plant found in wetlands throughout North America. One of our native veronicas, Veronica americana, American brook lime, is another obligate wetland indicator. The stems elongate and root at the nodes, sometimes forming dense colonies, keeping them in place in wet areas. As the creeks get closer to the ocean, the riparian habitat gives way to the creek and stream outlets. The vegetation changes and the creek and stream outlets form a natural boundary between our creek and ocean. As the freshwater drains to the ocean, the water can become brackish, slightly salty during tidal fluctuations. These are the outlets, showing the outlets at San Pedro Creek, Gazos Creek, and Tenitas Creek. Some of the wetland indicators in our creek and stream outlets include the broad fruited burr reed in the Typhaceae family, the cattail family. The leaf blade is long and narrow with very sharp along the edges. The flowers are on branches, here with the showy female flowers and the male producing pollen flowers above. The female flowers produces a distinctive round cluster of mace-like fruits. Small flowered sedge is in the Cyperaceae family, the sedge family. Many members of the sedge family throughout the world are wetland indicators. Small fruited sedge is a herbaceous perennial that spreads by underground rhizomes, forming clumps where the plant grows. The inflorescence is branched and the flowers are in head-like clusters. The photo on the right, this one here, shows the flowers, what they look like when they are going to seed. Shown here, growing at the mouth of the Pelarcitos Creek, is Western Dock, easily told apart from other docks by its large leaves and tall inflorescences and flowers that turn reddish brown in age. Next on our coastal freshwater ponds that usually have standing water in them all year long. Most ponds are made for agricultural use, but some are formed naturally from water runoff to low-lying areas. They are often surrounded by California tule, shown here. Tules occur in many other wetland habitats along the San Mateo Coast, including the saltwater marshes. This is the inflorescence of the California tule. Here is the pond, which is actually an earthen dam at Año Nuevo. Here you can see the bright pink flowers of the water smartweed. It forms a wetland habitat for animals, and the seeds are an important source of food for wildlife and wetland species. Chorus's popcorn flower is on the California Native Plant Society's rare plant list. It is considered rare, threatened, or endangered in California. Today it occurs only along the San Mateo Coast from San Mateo to Monterey County, making it endemic, only occurring in California. Chorus's popcorn flower is one of our few annual wetland indicator species. The California Native Plant Society is a great organization whose mission is to protect California's native plants and their natural habitats. CNPS.org will take you to your local chapter for walks and talks in your area. Now we are moving along to our saltwater marsh, saltwater, brackish, and freshwater marshes along the San Mateo Coast. Pescadero Marsh Natural Preserve is our largest marsh along the San Mateo Coast, containing saltwater, brackish, and freshwater marshland in one place. Here is a map showing the trails that go through the marsh, a great place to see diverse habitat of plants and wildlife along these trails. Butano Trail, Sequoia Audubon Trail, North Pond Trail. Along the trails here, you can see almost all of our wetland indicator plants that occur along the San Mateo Coast in one place. The marsh has over 320 acres of land and is one of the most significant coastal wetlands in Central California and the largest marsh along the San Mateo Coast. Pillar Point Marsh is another marsh where you can see the marsh habitat. Here is a map where you can see the extent of the Pescadero and Butano Creek watershed, 48,000 acres. The water drains from the top of the Santa Cruz Mountains to the marsh and towards the ocean, where the Pescadero and Butano Creeks come together to form the 320-acre Pescadero Marsh. Many plants have adapted to live in salty or brackish water, and they are called halophytes. Relatively few plant species are halophytes, perhaps only 2% of our plant species worldwide. Halophytes indicate where the marsh is the saltiest. Here, there are three main ways halophytes deal with living in salt: secretion, accumulation, and exclusion of salt. Saltgrass excretes all excess salt through the glands on the leaves. You can see this, the salt being secreted here, and the habitat where the salt grass occurs. This is just one of the adaptations that plants have evolved to tolerate living in salt water. Another halophyte is alkali heath. Alkali heath also has salt glands that excrete salt from its leaves, shown here with its gray-green leaves, gray-green succulent-like leaves and pink flowers. It forms a mat in the marsh above the muddy flatland. Saltwater marsh pickleweed, shown here on the right, is also a halophyte and a common plant in our marsh habitats. Pickleweed is a salt accumulator, taking up salt and storing it in special chambers at the terminal segments of its stems. When these become full of briny water, they turn red and drop off from the plant, removing the salty part of the plant. So when you see this red coloration in the marsh, you know that these are going to be dropping off. It gives beautiful fall color. The stems are shown here with their tiny flowers, by the way. The plant on the left is salt marsh dodder, also called golden thread. It is a parasitic plant often found on pickleweed along the coast. Germinating dodder seeds send out a small vine that grows and seeks out other pickleweed. Once growing on pickleweed, they get all of their nutrients from it, flowering, setting seed, while entirely living on the pickleweed. This is a photo I took yesterday of the pickleweed in the marsh and the dodder flowering right now along the Butano Creek Trail. So this is all pickleweed here with the coloration, the golden coloration of the dodder. Another halophyte found in the marsh is Jamea in the sunflower family. Fleshy Jamea or marsh Jamea. It's shown here with its succulent leaves. Jamea forms spreading branches that can root at the leaf nodes, forming dense patches. Jamea is a salt excluder and has special cells in the roots that block salt from getting to the other parts of the plant. A walk through the tules and cattails, you can see two of our most common plants in the marsh, the tules and the cattails. Tules can live in freshwater or brackish water, and the cattails mostly live in the fresher water. This is a walk through the marsh at high tide from a distance. Tules, also called bulrush, form dense stands in the marsh. It spreads by underground rhizomes that support the whole ecosystem in tidal fluctuation. Tules are very important to Native people. The strong stems are used to make boats, homes, and baskets. Broadleaf cattail is mostly found in freshwater in freshwater in the marsh. The seeds produced by the female flowers are minute and have tufts of hair that are attached to them and are dispersed by the wind. The North Pond at Pescadero Marsh has these large islands of saltwater bulrush. It is another halophyte that covers large areas in the North Pond. Up close here is shown the flower spikelet, each flower with its yellow stamen. You can see these beautiful colors in the landscape. Learn to recognize wetland plants. Now on to seasonal wetlands, shown here at Wave Crest in Half Moon Bay. Seasonal wetlands have standing fresh water for only a short time, mainly in winter and spring from the winter rains. Seasonal wetlands often occur in compacted soils and can occur in areas with a high water table. This photo was taken in January of 2022, this year. These areas dry out completely in the summer and stay dry until the following rainy season. This is a map of the Wave Crest area in Half Moon Bay, managed by the Coastside Land Trust. The blue area is showing the seasonal wetlands that are found there. These photos show what the seasonal wetland looks like and the plants associated with them. These seasonal wetlands become alive in the winter and spring in shades of green and brown. Seasonal wetlands along the coast include low-lying areas in the landscape, swales, ditches, and meadows. Many of the seasonal wetlands occur in fallow fields after agriculture and other farming activity has been removed. We have found seep monkey flower in 13 preserves along the San Mateo Coast. This species grows throughout much of Western North America from sea level to 12,000 feet in elevation. Seep monkey flower along the coast flowers from June to August with these large yellow flowers spotted with red dots that serve as nectar guides to bees that pollinate it. The dense flowered willow herb is an annual wildflower that blooms in late summer. The stems and leaves secrete a wet dew that is cold to the touch. Later, flowers form a dense cluster of flowers, giving it the common name, dense flowered willow herb. Flowers on the San Francisco rush are colorful but small. The stigma lobes are exerted, shown here, the pink twisted structures above the 6 yellow anthers. Juncus lazuri is a common California species occurring only is a common California species here, but only occurs from the California-Oregon border to Santa Barbara County in California. This is the walkway out to Franklin Point, which goes over the wetland seasonal habitat there. Blue-eyed grass, not blue or a grass, but the leaves are grass-like, is in the iris family. It is very common along the coast in seasonal wetland areas. Can also occur in these this white color form where you see it in large populations. One of our most common sedges, the nut sedge, has a colorful umbrella-like inflorescence with each cluster called a spikelet. Considered a weed in some places, its natural distribution is southern British Columbia to South America. It also forms underground rhizomes and makes these large clusters of plants in the wetlands. This is a population of 3-ribbed arrowgrass, was recently discovered at Bean Hollow by Kenichi Awada. Hope I pronounced his name correctly. It had never been observed or vouchered, no herbarium specimen for San Mateo County before. This observation was made this year in iNaturalist, a social network of naturalists, citizen scientists, and biologists mapping and sharing observations of biodiversity across the globe. Explorations of the plants that occur in our area is ever growing as we continue to explore. These are the small flowers, the fruits, and this plant is only a couple inches tall. The final wetland habitat are the seeps and springs that occur in our sea cliff faces. Cliff face habitat is common along the San Mateo Coast, and cliff faces have a distinct habitat. Many cliff faces have freshwater seeps or water that runs off from the upper coastal bluffs. This cushion plant, the low club rush, is an obligate wetland plant. It occurs mostly on wet sea cliffs and rocky areas where fresh water is present, although it can also occur in brackish water in the rocky upper tidal zone as well. California seaside plantain in California is strictly coastal. It occurring all along the California coast. The inflorescence is a long spike of with many small flowers, and the leaves are very succulent and mostly found growing on our cliff faces. This whole plant here with its leaves and flowers. Protecting our watershed is important, and removing invasive non-native plants is critical to preserving our natural habitats. These are three of our most invasive non-native plants that occur in our wetlands. The Cape ivy that has come to us from South Africa, the jubata grass, Cortaderia jubata, that is native to the Andes Mountains in South Africa, and showing here the poison hemlock that is native to North Africa and Europe. Wetland habitat protection is important for the whole ecosystem. Wetlands provide food and shelter to many animals, as shown in these photos. See pond turtles and ducks, the marsh hawk in brackish saltwater, deer in the willow thickets, birds nesting, butterflies resting. This net is made in the marsh using all wetland plants. This photo from iNaturalist taken at Pescadero Marsh showing the savanna sparrow in the pickleweed. Pollinators and caterpillars, snakes and frogs, and many other animals as well, using the wetland habitats along the San Mateo Coast. Wetland habitats along the San Mateo Coast are very diverse, and I hope I've shown you how diverse they are and some of the plants that occur in them. And I hope you'll be able to identify some of them as you take your walks here along the San Mateo Coast. I would like to introduce you to my two field partners who have helped me find, photograph, and identify the plants and habitats along the San Mateo Coast, Avis Boutel and Nancy Frost. We have published this book, The Plants and Plant Communities of the San Mateo Coast, that includes photographs of 100 of our most common plants that occur here and information about the habitats and plant communities. The books can be purchased by Coastside Land Trust and at the state park visitor centers along the San Mateo Coast. All profits from the books go to the Coastside state parks. The photographs that I've shown you today in this webinar are by Avis and I, unless otherwise noted on the photograph. Here is a reference page that you can look at later if you're interested in learning more about our wetland indicator plants and habitats. And thank you for joining me today. I hope this presentation will help you identify some of our wetland indicator plants and habitats while visiting our mini parks along the San Mateo Coast. Thank you to the Coastside Land Trust for sponsoring this webinar, and I'll be glad to take your questions.
Hi, thank you so much, Toni, for a wonderful presentation. And it seems as though you have you've answered a lot that people have asked because we're thinking about, because we only have a couple of questions today. So thank you for those of you who are sticking around for our few questions. We have the one person who is anonymous here asked if you lead nature walks, because this person said, do you lead nature walks? I could listen to you for hours. Would you like to speak to that?
Sure. Yes, I used to. I used to lead nature walks all the time, but since I retired, I've stopped doing that. But if you have the opportunity to, you can go on a lot of nature walks with the California Native Plant Society and other organizations in the Bay Area that lead them. That's what I suggest. And that is just the best way to learn about our plants, because if you go on a nature walk with the California Native Plant Society, they will be talking, you won't go very far, but they will be talking about every single plant that they see, and much more information about the plants as well, about each plant, just on and on and on. So yeah, I do not lead walks anymore, but just give talks now.
Well, and also the resource, couple of additions to that from our end is that Toni led for many years the wildflower walk, some walks within Wavecrest open space for us to learn about the plant communities there. And we're really grateful for that. But also she will be sharing with us a resource that we will send to you within our follow-up email that'll give kind of your own how-to as you're walking through, or your own I Spy as you go along, with over 250 plants, wetland plants that you can be looking and following along as you go. So that's another resource that I think you hopefully will enjoy having.
Yeah, I think it's an important list to have, for people out there doing biological work, as well as just enjoying the wetlands and the plants that occur in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had, you made reference to the other book, the book that you have, the plants just of the coast, of the San Mateo Coast, and we just from a totally aside, we've carried that book around in our car. Just a wonderful thing to keep in your car, and then when you're out on these walks, it's just there. You can bring it along and identify new plants. We have, let's see, one person was asking, is Clara Creek part of the San Pedro watershed? Is the water department the
Clara Creek is in Pacifica, correct?
Is that right?
Yes, I believe Clara Creek is in Pacifica.
Let's see.
And it would be yeah, I'm trying to get back to that slide. Hold on just a sec. So I believe Clara Creek is up here in Pacifica, which is, they call it an unidentified watershed. For some reason, it's not labeled here, but I would call it the Pacifica watershed. I believe that's the creek they're talking about. Now, I do not mention it in this. It may not flow to the ocean. Maybe that's why I don't mention it in this list of creeks.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So I don't know more about it, but anyway, I'm gonna, as soon as we're done with this, I will look it up so I know.
Yeah.
Now.
So this person sounds interested in this as well, because they were talking about wondering if it was a natural wetland or or riparian, even though it's been altered by the building of the reclamation site. So that's
Right. Yes. Yes. I have been to Clara Creek, and I'm pretty sure it's in Pacifica, but I'm not I I do believe it comes from a natural creek or stream, but you know, a lot of our a lot of our creeks and streams have been altered over time by in various ways. So yes, if you see wetland indicator plants there, then you know it is a wetland.
Mhm. Barbara asks, there's this kind of minty smelling and looking plant that they see at Smithfield, so at the south end of the Wave Crest open space. Is they're wondering if it's native and
What kind of plant? What was the first word you said? What kind of
a
plant?
minty smelling and
Oh, a
looking.
minty. Yes, it's probably pennyroyal, Mentha phlegium. Everybody always asks about that plant because it's one of the few plants that blooms later in late summer, you know, like right now even, and it has a very minty smell. However, it is not edible. It's not an edible mint. You don't want to use it to make a tea or anything else. And if it is that plant, the then it is a non-native plant, but it's a non-native plant that is a wetland indicator.
Thank you. Laura asks, what type of preparations are ongoing to adapt to sea level rise along the San Mateo Coast wetlands? Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's a big question. And I know that a lot of information is being provided by the city of Half Moon Bay right now. They are even having workshops and talks about sea level rise along the San Mateo Coast, and specifically probably Half Moon Bay area.
And actually, in addition to that, Toni, we had a great webinar. If you go to our website, and this is actually speaks to all of our prior our webinars. We have, if you go onto our website and look at the past webinar section, there's a wonderful recording that addresses that topic and how that's being addressed. So I think that you can get a lot of answer to that question if you head into that. And you can also look at if you just go to our YouTube channel, that's another place that you can see these recordings.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Good.
Another question, but this is a little more specific to the plants. What impact, if any, is our multi-year drought having on these wetland areas?
Yes, our multi-year drought, like during I think the last 10 years, we've had, 7 drought years, and it's having a big impact on our wetlands. The seasonal wetlands are shrinking a lot. They're not lasting as long. And the native plants that are growing there are often being overrun by non-native plants that are taking advantage of the wetland areas as well. So the droughts, if they're going to continue, which it looks like they are, and we have these other events, these big rain, atmospheric river events that also just kind of wash out large areas of our wetlands really quickly, not allowing, the wetland plants to grow. So a very big effect. I've really noticed over the years, the time I've worked on the San Mateo Coast, that our wetlands are shrinking. Wetland plants are diminishing, and it's a big effect. Hopefully, they will adapt as plants do. They're very very well at adapting, and hopefully, we'll continue to see wetlands and wetland plants.
And someone was asking, actually, Bing was asking, does drought favor the halophytes?
Pescadero Marsh is just very a unique ecosystem, and water seems to be there all the time, even the fresh water. You saw that a watershed, how enormous it is and how much drainage goes in to the Pescadero Marsh and freshwater drainage. And then, uh, uh, so the question, is it more salty? Maybe that's what they're saying. The salt actually in the marsh has been lying in the marsh for many, many years and is in the soil, in the muddy soil. And it's always being released from that soil. And, halophytes are, growing there quite well, especially the pickleweed and the saltgrass. The water from the ocean doesn't break through very often into the marsh area from the beach. It's kind of closed off by the sandy barrier, but it does seep into the underground water table, also allowing more salt to get into the marsh that way. So I think the halophytes are going to be quite fine there. And sorry, I think I lost track of the question.
Does it favor the drought, right? Yeah.
Yes, a lot of fresh water comes in there, and there's a lot of salt water in there as well, from the reasons I told you about. So
Awesome.
I'm not sure if it would favor it.
Yeah. A lot of people responded. Thank you so much to Sean and Greg and a number of you that were sharing that Clara Creek is in Pacifica. It's at Rockaway, and it comes down through the hills and flows near the wastewater treatment plant. Sean is actually saying a portion of the Clara Creek west of Highway 1 has been restored. It migrates through adjacent to the old quarry, and lots of great willow riparian forest is there. Clara Creek surface flows to the ocean on a seasonal basis, but likely flows subsurface at other times. Both
Yes.
California red-legged frog and the San Francisco garter snake, both special status species, utilize this Clara Creek. Great information. Thank you.
Very good. Yes. Okay, good. I'm glad I was correct about the location.
Yeah, just outside of your bounds there. Someone else was asking about the creek in North Montara by the horse ranch. Thought maybe it wasn't included. Ron was asking.
Green, is that Green Creek or Denniston? No, not yes, Pacifica. So yes, I have San Pedro Creek. I kind of cut this off at Pacifica, but I don't show the creek that I think is that one might go down a Gray Whale Cove area. No, I didn't mention that creek. That's another very large riparian habitat area for lots of willows and lots of understory vegetation. So yes, I think I just mentioned the main creeks that flow to the ocean. So I've probably left out a lot. I did have a slide that this one here, I didn't put it in the presentation, that shows a lot of our creeks, but it only goes up to Half Moon Bay. To San Pedro Creek up here, Half Moon Bay being here. So it doesn't, it may be this creek that he's talking about up here.
Okay.
In Montara.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you so much. And I think that we have a lot of accolades in the Q&A section that are here too, but I think we've answered all the questions that you all sent our way. And thank you again for the clarifications with Clara Creek, learning from each other in the community conversation. So yeah, and thank you, Toni. Thank you so much for taking this time to do this and to share your knowledge and your research with the community. I think there's a lot of us that learn a lot from these, and hopefully all of you who are remaining and sticking around have learned a lot too in this from this presentation. And
Well, thanks so much.
yeah,
Thanks so much for coming, everyone.
thank you. We will be sending, so thank you for joining us, all of you who've been able to watch this live. Know that we will be sending out a follow-up email in the next couple of days. And on this email, it will include a recording of this webinar, some links that are shared by Ms. Corelli, and that those will include that list of wetland plants that you can look at and carry around with you to identify these as you go. About in your walks in open space, and then also if there are any unanswered questions, that kind of pop into the last second here, you're welcome to add those, and we can have those answered as well. We mentioned this before, but if you want to get back and take a look at some of those past webinars, I think that's something that we can't emphasize enough. And I think this community of learners there and community of presentations, there is just this is a vast collection now that we've been doing this for the last couple of years. So get in there on, just a day that you have time to listen, or you're doing, you're doing your dishes and you just want something to listen to in a way that you can really understand the environment around you. I think that you would really, or folks that haven't gotten to see all these, you may find that that's a wonderful opportunity to get in there. You can get that either on our YouTube channel, or you can or through our past webinars section on our website. Please, if you are in support of the Coastside Land Trust, and I know that you are, most of you are, please consider donating to the Coastside Land Trust for the preservation and protection of our open space, and also for programs such as this webinar series, also the Junior Land Stewards program, which is educating our local students at the Cabrillo Unified School District, getting them out in the open spaces, a year-long program where they're educating them and getting them to take the leadership roles and stewardship roles in our open space land. Valuable programs. You can, make a choice rather to donate today, or maybe just to consider donating in your annual giving. Every cent, as Joe Chamberlain shared at the beginning, every cent of that goes to these valuable programs into the preservation of open space land. So it is a really valuable donation, and something that even those of us who work for the organization continue to donate and to support. If you want to keep up to date on what we're doing and what's coming down the pike and all of that, social media, if that's a great way to just kind of have it coming in, reminding you of what's going on. So Facebook, you can like us and follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn. Any of those are good avenues to do that. Thank you again, Toni, very, very much.
Thank you. Thanks to Coastside Land Trust for all you do.
Thank you.
And thanks, everyone. I'll see you on the trails.
Thank you all for being here. All right, and we'll see you again. We have Gray Hayes will be here in a couple of weeks, and he's going to be sharing about rebuilding the coastal prairies. And we'll look forward to seeing many of you there. All right, thank you all.